Hello there. Welcome to Locked On Astros. Fantasy baseball in 2023 is about to go off. Which Astros should you draft? Where in the draft should you get them? And which ones should you avoid? Or who are the sleepers? We're going to talk about that on this edition of Locked On Astros.
Alvarez hits a high drive center field. Beer leans back. This game is turned upside down. There's the runner. Fly ball down the right field line. Tucker comes on. Kyle Tucker. This time they finish the job.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Astros, your daily Astros podcast. Here are your hosts, Eric the Man Huysman and Brett H-Town Wheelhouse Chancey.
We are Locked On Houston Astros, and we update you joints for a daily Locked On Astros podcast. My name is Eric Huysman. You can find me on Twitter at Eric Talks Stros. Find the show at Locked On Astros, your team every day. Brett, where can you find you at?
They can find me at H-Town Wheelhouse on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. They can find me at Stros411 on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Always positive, always Stros.
It's fantasy baseball season, and I've got a couple drafts next weekend. I'm super excited. I've been actually working on fantasy baseball stuff all day. Brett knows this. He's in one of my leagues now. And so we decided to bring in the boys over at Locked On Fantasy Baseball. Hey, guys, where can we find you at? And introduce yourselves.
How you doing? Thanks for having us. By the way, that drop is killer. It actually is absolute fire. I'm Matt Onay. You can find me at Matthews_Onay, AHNE. Yeah.
And I'm Dominic Martino. You can find me on Twitter at LO_FantasyMLB. You could find us on YouTube at Locked On Fantasy Baseball. You could also find us on Instagram on Locked On Fantasy Baseball. And we're available on all podcasting platforms. Just search Locked On Fantasy Baseball and you will find us.
All right, guys, thank you for making Locked On Astros podcast your first listen. We just reached 7,000 subscribers on YouTube. We want to get to 8,000 and beyond, baby. So keep on subscribing to us. Keep on giving us big fat thumbs up and make us your first listen on Apple, Odyssey, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Go and check us out. And normally, if we have Locked On guys, we go ahead and bash the other team because we don't like other teams because everybody hates the Astros. But then we got a Yankees fan and then a Blue Jays hat here. So it's like, should we go and bash them? But we'll go ahead and play nice for this episode. So we got a lot that we want to kind of look at today. And the drafts are coming up. I know for the first time, a lot of people are looking at a top Astros hitter not named Jose Altuve. Who do y'all see as the top hitter?
To be honest, I mean, the top hitter for me on your team for fantasy-wise would probably be Yordan Alvarez. Yordan is absolutely incredible. The only downside for him in terms of fantasy is his position eligibility, unless you're playing on Yahoo, where he has outfield eligibility. Everywhere else, he's UT only. Yordan is going to hit you 40 bombs. He's going to hit you a decent average. He's going to get you 100 and 100 ribbies. And it's going to be killer.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement. Yordan Alvarez is an absolute masher. He's somebody that I've loved over the years since when he first got called up. I had picked him up in a whole bunch of my leagues. Only thing is, unfortunately, where, he's still a little bit banged up. I don't even think he's resumed swinging yet. So just want to, proceed with caution when it comes to Yordan and make sure you stay updated as far as, his status going into the season.
So with these hitters, Yordan Alvarez is really that guy that is your perennial fearmonger amongst opposing pitchers. Kyle Tucker and Alex Bregman and Jose Abreu were my top three. Are those – I mean, this team has more than three big hitters. Who would you say, other than Alvarez, would you put in the top three for this season?
So personally, I have my top three Astros as Yordan, who we just previously mentioned, Kyle Tucker and Jose Altuve. I think Kyle Tucker is in for a huge season as far as, he could be a 5-category contributor if he gets that batting average up a little bit, which I think he's totally capable of. He had a little bit of a down year last year in batting average, and hopefully they can move him up the lineup. I don't know what you guys think, but I think Kyle Tucker should be moved up that lineup. I don't like him hitting either in that 5 or 6 hole. If they can move him up in that lineup, that'd be absolutely fantastic for his fantasy value.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Tucker. I have him almost everywhere. So like Tucker is a 5-tool guy, so he can steal your bases, he can hit for average, he can do all the wonderful stuff you like when you're drafting a guy early in the draft. But then on top of that, he's just a solid player. So I'm drafting Tucker everywhere.
I think the fact that the Astros lineup is so deep is the fact that he's hitting Kyle Tucker's hitting so far down. And you have somebody like Jeremy Pena, who was so good hitting second, but Michael Brantley is returning back to the team. So he's probably going to be hitting, seventh in the lineup. So this lineup is so deep. And then you don't even need to worry about what Maldonado or Chas McCormick does down the road. But yeah, this team is good. And I think to go off what Kyle Tucker is going to do, I think with the shift being banned, even though it seems like, especially with Joey Gallo up, they're shifting the outfielders.
I saw that the other day, and I was like, damn, okay, they're still finding a way to get Gallo.
Yeah, that was something when my dad and I were invited to a town hall with Craig Biggio, and he was answering questions, and he said, I don't know if y'all realize, but teams are going to be shifting the left fielder over to short right field because there's no ban on an outfielder shifting. And everybody's like, oh my gosh, yeah, I knew they would find a way around the rule. It's too bad we can't find a way around this crazy pitch clock. I don't want to get into that because that's like a whole show in itself. It's just nuts, man.
Madison Bumgarner likes it, so if he likes it, we should all like it, right?
Just
yeah,
keep him happy.
Him and Max Scherzer, they love it.
Yeah,
Max Scherzer is toying with the batters.
Oh,
he's just just waiting for them to get in lineup.
Just got to watch out for Bumgarner. He might try and fight the umpire.
Yeah, for real. So with those being your top hitters, basically, I think we all have our top three, and they're different. But it's like you really can't go wrong with the top 6 or 7 in this lineup. With that being said, the Astros are chock full of pitchers. The starting rotation, the middle relief, the back end. I mean, it's really hard to find a hole in this pitching roster, even with Justin Verlander gone. Who would you say are your top 3 pitchers to draft if our fans are drafting Astros pitchers?
Well, I certainly my favorite without a doubt is Christian Javier. The kid broke out last year and had a monster season. 2.54 ERA, 0.95 WHIP, a 33 K percentage. The thing is, he's going about three rounds later than a guy like Spencer Strider, and he basically had the same type of season. You should absolutely be targeting Christian Javier in all of your fantasy drafts. Then I have Framber Valdez, is somebody, very, very consistent. I believe he led the league in quality starts last year. If you play in a league with quality starts, he's a man to go out and get. And then I have Ryan Presley. I kind of snuck him in there as my number 3 just to get a reliever in there. Had an absolutely dominant year last year. I know he's getting a little bit older, but I think he gets the job done at the back of that bullpen very, very well.
Yeah, you can't really say anything else on those 3. I mean, Framber Valdez is going to be absolutely studly this year, and so is Christian Javier. I saw early predictions that the guy was already being picked as the early Cy Young winner, and I could totally see that happening. Guy's a stud, and for fantasy, the sky's the limit.
So looking at the pitchers, you got Hunter Brown. He came on last year, made 2 starts with the Houston Astros, then showed that he could be dominant in the bullpen. And he's probably, with Lance McCullers' injury, he's going to be in the rotation to start the season. And we're not worried about his first spring training start. But what is fantasy baseball thinking about Hunter Brown?
Hunter Brown is absolute monster. Last year, I saw a side-by-side comparison of him and Justin Verlander. Their release looks absolutely identical. I think Hunter Brown takes off this year. Right now, he's currently going super, super late in, according to ADP. And you should just go out there. If you can get him as one of your last picks in fantasy baseball, you're going to make out very, very well. I think he takes that 5th spot away from McCullers and absolutely runs away with it. I could see the Astros possibly transitioning maybe McCullers to the bullpen so he doesn't keep dealing with all of these injuries like he's done over the last few years. If he could be that long relief guy out of the bullpen, give you 2, maybe 3 innings if you need it out of him in the bullpen, he might be better off, and let Hunter Brown flourish.
Dominic, have you met Lance McCullers? He's not going to like that too much.
Hey, man, sometimes you got to do what you got to do for the team, right?
Yeah, but he's not going to want that on his LinkedIn profile. And speaking of which, this episode is brought to you by LinkedIn.
Yeah, that's right. LinkedIn is the place to go these days. Every new potential hire can feel like a high stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. Then what you do is after you create this LinkedIn job, you add a purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. So people know when they see your profile, oh, look, H-Town Wheelhouse is hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates like, are you really an Astros fan? And what's your first Astro that you ever liked? I don't know. Look, basically, whatever your business is going for, find the right skills, the people with the right experience so that you can quickly prioritize who you would like to interview. Because you don't want to interview the wrong people for the right job. You want the right people for the right job. This is why small businesses rank LinkedIn #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonMLB. That's linkedin.com/lockedonMLB to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
Okay, looking at the newest Astro, I know we're talking about pitching, but I think a lot of people want to know, what is Jose Abreu going to do this year? I mean, he's coming from what he's termed not a good family with the Chicago White Sox, and he feels like he's right at home with the Houston Astros. What do you see his power returning with the Crawford boxes out there? What is fantasy baseball thinking about Jose Abreu in Houston?
Eric, I
Yeah,
think you took the words right out of my mouth with those Crawford boxes. I think Jose Abreu, he only hit 15 bombs last year, but I think he could bounce back to over 20 plus. I believe if he played all of his games in Houston, he was projected to hit around 22 home runs. So I could definitely see him returning to about that. He's not going to be the 30 plus home run guy he used to be, but he's also a career 292 batting average hitter. He's led the league in RBIs before. He's had over 100 RBIs in about 7 seasons. So I think the counting stats are going to be there. He's definitely one of the top first basemen, according to me. I believe I have him ranked as my 5th first baseman coming into this year for fantasy baseball.
yeah. I mean, Abreu is just going to be a stud, especially with that lineup with the protection, and also the counting stats are going to be outrageous with everybody around him. I don't see how Abreu isn't a fantasy darling this year, and in real life baseball, I don't see how Abreu isn't successful with the Astros, and unfortunately, they make them super dangerous against my Yankees.
Yeah, definitely. And you know what? We like to hear that. We like to hear how the Astros are dangerous against the New York Yankees. I know that's been kind of a running theme, and I mean, literally source of frustration for you guys with the Houston Astros. But this team, top to bottom, I think when it comes to hitters, when it comes to pitchers, it is just it's like, who do you pick and who do you not pick? And my question is this: do you see someone on this lineup, or maybe coming up from the minor leagues, that would be a sleeper, or someone like a Brian Abreu that might even get more innings this year, that could really surprise with fantasy value? Because I know, like in our league, we're allowed to have like 3 minor leaguers, right? Do we have any sleepers? Do we have anybody out there that maybe Astros fans aren't, maybe they know about, but they're not thinking fantasy wise?
Well, the most prominent one I could think of, and I know we kind of already touched on him, was Hunter Brown. Especially with him getting the chance there. And then again, if it's not Hunter Brown, another guy, and I know it's hard to say after what this guy did in the World Series, is Jeremy Pena as well. He is coming off the board in fantasy drafts right now as the number 18 shortstop. So there's a lot of value there with Jeremy Pena. So if you can get him late in your drafts, I think it's going to be an absolute steal. As far as the minor league system goes, there isn't any one particular guy that absolutely stands out to me. Maybe you guys have somebody in mind that in the minor leagues that you think could break out this year. That please let me know. I would love to know, as a fantasy analyst. You guys probably have that insight.
What do you think, Eric?
The only guy that I think is opening some eyes this camp is Justin Dearden. He's not a top prospect, but he's somebody who's kind of hitting his way into the eyes of Dusty Baker. And I don't think he's going to be a starting center fielder, but he's somebody who could, let's say, Chaz McCormick or Jake Myers or all of the above struggle. He could be an option. You have somebody like David Hensley, who, let's say there's an injury, he could be somebody that steps into a big role. He's having a pretty good camp and playing all over the diamond. So, but there's also Ronel Blanco. With the Astros having Lance McCullers out, he is somebody that's being transitioned from a bullpen role to a potential starter role, whether that's a opener or a kind of an old Christian Javier role, where maybe one game he pitches 3 innings, the next game he may pitch 5 innings and a start as a part of a 6-man rotation. Because you mentioned earlier the Astros might, like when Lance McCullers returns, he might Hunter Brown might beat him out. But I think what you're going to see is the 6-man rotation, because Dana Brown has mentioned that he liked what the Astros did last year, and the Braves, they fell short last year in the playoffs because their rotation was just overworked.
Yeah, I think too, you have to look at guys, and I know he's not playing right now, but if he's able to get healthy and get kick-started, a midseason call-up would be a Pedro Leon type of person. You also Forrest Whitley. Look, Forrest Whitley has his eyes on the prize still. He's not like, he may be forgotten in the minds of most Astros fans, and people keep calling him Mark Appel 2.0 or whatever. I mean, literally, like, people are very harsh on this guy. But there's nobody who wants to get to the big leagues more than Forrest Whitley. And there's nobody that's been a part of more trade talks than Forrest Whitley himself. And so Forrest Whitley, I think, is a guy that if he's given the opportunity, he really could come up and give you some fantasy points. If you have a guy go on the IL and you need someone to come in and he comes up, he can make a difference, because if he's throwing strikes and he's missing bats, he could have high value.
Yeah, I agree. I do like Forrest Whitley, a big 6'7" guy, 240 pounds. If he could figure it out, he's, former top prospect, he's still only going to be 25 years old this year. I think there is a lot of, opportunity for him to come up, and, if there is the opportunity in that, rotation, he could come up and be great. Let's see how it goes. And I do like the Justin Dearden one. He was very, very good in the minors last year. Hit 24 home runs, 101 RBIs. He hit 302. So if, he takes Chaz McCormick's job, there could be some fantasy value there. Definitely someone to keep your eyes on.
Yeah, the problem with the Astros is they don't have that top prospect, like that sexy one that other teams have, like that Francisco Alvarez, or just the top ones that everybody, fantasy owners, are going to be drooling over. But what they do is they turn those prospects they have into Jeremy Peñas, into Hunter Browns, into hopefully this year we're going to be talking about Corey Lee or Yainer Diaz, because one of those guys need to be backup catcher. So what do we see in terms? I know if you're going for a backup catcher in fantasy baseball, you're pretty much, your team is pretty screwed anyway. But what do you think about the catching situation for the Houston Astros?
With them, they got rid of Christian Vasquez, and Maldonado isn't somebody that you're really targeting in fantasy drafts. He's good, pretty good, in real life baseball. Definitely fits that team. But I do like Yainer Diaz. He's a pretty solid young hitter. He got a little cup of coffee last year. He didn't absolutely blow the world away, but he actually played great down in the minors last year. He played 105 games, 445 at bats, 75 runs, 25 homers, 96 RBIs, and he hit 306. So he's shown that, hey, he can get it done. Maybe he comes up and he gets the opportunity. Definitely a name to keep your eyes on. That's Yainer Diaz.
So with all these rule changes going on, and we kind of hit on a little bit, it seems like the pitch clock is more of an advantage for the pitcher. It seems like the pickoff rule is more an advantage for the hitter with more stolen bases. Do you think that these rule changes are you're going to see like an increase and a flux in fantasy points given out for players per game? Or do you think it's going to be a kind of like a net zero, like where it's not really adding or subtracting? I mean, what is the possibility of that improving my points per week for fantasy baseball?
So my take is, let's get into some Astro guys. I know that's what we're here to talk about. A guy like Kyle Tucker, right? he could potentially, he's pretty fast. He could potentially be stealing more with the bigger bases. Last year they implemented it in the minors and steals were up. I believe it was about around 15% across the all of the minors. So I think guys that that do already steal can potentially steal even more. And then with the shift, right? Let's talk about guys like Jose Abreu and Jose Altuve. The couple of Jose's there. They know how to hit. They're absolutely great hitters. So if you know how to place the ball when you're hitting, which a lot of players do, I think Jose Abreu and Altuve, Altuve could potentially get his average back up, closer to that 300. Abreu is already a 300 hitter. I think he could, have that, same high batting average that we're used to seeing with him. Just once again, it's a lot easier to put the ball where the guys aren't now. I mean, I know we're seeing that, some teams move that left fielder over, but you're not going to do that against guys like Abreu and Altuve. They're just going to put the ball right into left field then,
Yeah, exactly.
So if you're looking at Alex Bregman, I know that Fantasy Pros has him listed as 65th overall. Do you see him? We saw him kind of have a resurgence last year after a couple of down seasons. Do we see him kind of returning back to the Alex Bregman of old and fantasy wise?
I do like Alex Bregman, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it was after he had his child that he just took off, right? Am I correct with that? Yeah,
Yes.
that had him super motivated, and sometimes that's what you need in life. We sometimes forget that, these guys, when it comes to fantasy, you get in that mindset of just, oh, you want production. These guys are real people. You have something going on in your life. You're upset. Matt and I like to say, first year players on a new team, sometimes that affects them in a certain way. But he has a kid now that got him motivated. He's, seems to be happy. He's back on track. Played 155 games last year, so he looks fairly healthy coming into this year. I think he could be closer to that 30 bombs. The counting stats were great for him last year with the 93 runs, 93 RBIs. I don't know if he's going to ever get back to like the 17 steals he had in 2017. So in the steals department, not so much. But hey, he's a career 277 hitter, and he hit 259 last year. And once again, without the shift, maybe he's out there talking to Altuve and Abreu and getting some tips on how to spray the ball a little bit more. I think that batting average could bounce back up. I do like Alex Bregman for fantasy this year.
And the thing I do like about Alex Bregman, Dominic, is that he felt great in the postseason. And if you remember back to 2021, where he's basically playing with a broken hand, he had a basically injury-riddled season that year, the soft tissue stuff. Then he comes back, and at the end of the season, he's just like got this dad strength, like you talked about. And it's kind of bantered about between him and the media, but really, there's got to be something to that. His son is named Knox, like you get Knox on the field and
there you go.
And so it's like he's my good luck charm. And so he definitely has that going for him. And even now he's saying this is the best he's felt coming into spring training. And that's what you want to hear, because Alex Bregman's like 1 or 2 seasons away from needing a contract extension if Dana Brown fulfills his promise and says Bregman and Altuve need to remain an Astro for their whole career. And so he's got a lot riding on this season. And when you're healthy and confident, that's a dangerous mixture with someone like Alex Bregman, who really is probably one of the villains when he goes on the road.
Oh Lord, I saw him at the, I got a game like 2 years ago, and it was I'm a Yankee fan. You may not notice with the Blue Jay stuff, but I am a Yankees fan. I don't hate on anybody. I'm a overall baseball fan. But I was at the game where they started those chants against Altuve, and Bregman launched one that game, and he had the whole crowd quiet, and it was a very, very interesting night, to say the least.
All right. So looking at these don't have to be Astros players. You don't have to play to our crowd or anything. But looking at if you had to draft, I mean, I guess it doesn't have to be like for your team or anything. But who are the top 3 pitchers you would go for in a draft, and who are the top 3 hitters you would go for?
Okay, so I'm going to start off here with my top 3 hitters. And I think one of the obvious ones, if you've been watching spring training at all, it's Juan Soto. I know he's dealing with a little bit of a calf issue right now, but it seems to be more precautionary than anything else. And Juan Soto's raking right now. He's played 4 games, 11 at-bats, 8 hits, 3 doubles, a bomb, 7 RBIs, and he's hitting a monstrous 727 with a walk and a strikeout. So I think Juan Soto right now is being a little bit undervalued. Somebody that was arguably the top pick last year. Definitely get Juan Soto. An outfield is super thin this year. Once you get past like the top 30, 35, go and get Juan Soto. Anthony Rendon is somebody that's going after pick 200. I think he's motivated to come back and show everybody that he still got it. Anthony Rendon, if you've been playing fantasy, you're just watching baseball, when he's healthy, he's one of the best hitters in all of baseball. That Angels lineup gets a little bit better this year with Hunter Renfroe and Logan O'Hoppe, and then I got the obvious Mike Trout and Ohtani there. And my third guy is Jordan Walker. If you guys don't know about Jordan Walker, he is absolutely taking spring training by storm. He had a 2-home run game the other day, and he is fighting for a spot in that Cardinals lineup. I think he absolutely wins it. He had a 4-for-4 game the other day, too. The kid is just doing everything that he can. He's a big man at 6'5", 220 pounds. And just real quick, right now he's played 6 games in spring training, 18 at-bats, 9 hits, 3 bombs, 3 doubles, 6 RBIs, and he's hitting 500.
I love that. That's a hard top 3 to argue with. I went ahead and went with, I think Manny Machado is going to have an MVP type season. Trey Turner with his new team, and of course Mike Trout. If Mike Trout can stay healthy all season, I mean, what this guy's going to do, what he can do at the plate is just amazing. I guess the question remains for Angels fans: can we make the playoffs? Those are my top 3 hitters. Eric, do you have any? Do you get any from what we listed?
Sure, yeah. I'm gonna go with Kyle Tucker, then Yordan Alvarez, and then Jose Altuve. I'm gonna play H-Town Wheelhouse for once.
No, see,
that's fair. That's fair.
You can't throw me. No. Well, technically, so tell me, Eric, who are your top 3 non-Astros draft picks?
Yeah, I think you've always got it. I think that if you look at it, Mookie Betts is always a good pick. You've got to also look at Shohei Ohtani. He's always, he may not be the best hitter out there. I mean, he's a good hitter, but he's exciting for what he can do for doing on both sides. And then there's some excitement for some of these young guys like Julio Rodriguez. I want to see what he can do when the league adjusts to him. And so especially Astros pitching, can the Astros actually kind of figure him out and slow him down? I mean, I know it's going to be a little bit different season. So Dominique, let's go ahead and switch to pitchers. What are your top your pitchers you're reaching for?
Okay, so first up, I got Brandon Woodruff here from, Milwaukee. He was dealing with a little bit of that Raynaud's issue last year, which kind of limited him, but he still had a monster season when he was out there. The guy has great stuff, and, he gets to pitch with Corbin Burns and Freddie Peralta. I'm sure they all sit there and they talk about their stuff. I think Woodruff, if he gets to around, close to 200 innings, he could have well over 200 strikeouts. The ERA is a career 3.18. And then even in 2021, he had a 2.56 ERA. Then I have Michael Kopech. Michael Kopech is just going so late. The reason I have him listed is because of the value. I know he's dealing with that knee issue still, but I think he's going to be on track. The kid was a very high-end prospect when he first came up. And he actually, had a pretty solid season last year. 3.54 ERA, 119 innings, 105 strikeouts, and a 1.19 WHIP. I think he can improve upon those numbers. He's in his prime. He's going to be 27 this year. And then the last one is an interesting one. It's I have Kodai Senga, someone who also is going pretty late around pick 175. And I don't know if you guys saw, but they had an interview with Pete Alonso when they were doing some work there with in the Mets camp. And Pete Alonso was like, she struck me out in that last pitch. He goes, I've never seen a pitch move like that. And then they had Kodai sitting with his interpreter. And then, the interpreter told him what Pete Alonso said. And then Kodai Senga goes, that's the ghost pitch. And I was like, all right, Mr. Senga, let's go.
It is going to be exciting what they have in New York. I mean, you would think like losing Jacob deGrom, that would be a recipe for disaster. But then you retool with this guy and Justin Verlander. And I've got Justin Verlander as one of my top 3. I got Corbin Burns. I think this guy's going to come out with like a guy with his hair on fire, because he was completely insulted by the arbitration process. He even talked about it openly. And I remember because Eric hadn't heard the soundbite, and we were on the show live, and I was like, well, this is what Corbin Burns said. And Eric's reaction was like, oh my gosh, who says that about a player? They basically told the guy, we lost the playoffs because of you. And that was his interpretation. And of course, I put Shohei Ohtani up there. Ohtani is just so good. What this guy's doing, just it's just unbelievable because he does it so well. He throws so hard, and it's just great for the game. But those are my top three pitchers if I'm looking at non-Astros. But I love a lot of guys that are out there. I think Gosman's going to be fire. I think Robbie Ray's probably going to have a better year than he did last year. I mean, what is Clayton Kershaw going to do? But I mean, you've got guys in Tampa, you've got a whole litany of pitchers in Atlanta. And then you look, the Rangers, they got some great pitchers, but can they stay healthy?
Oh yeah, I agree with everything you said there. Starting pitchers is one of the deepest positions in fantasy this year. We haven't seen starting pitcher this deep in, like, I'd say at least the last 5 years or so.
Yeah. And some guy, I'm going to cheat here. My top three are Sandy Alcantara. I mean, that guy
There
is
you
just,
go.
he's just a beast. And I mean, Spencer
is.
Strider, he's coming into his own and after just his rookie season. But just what Sandy's doing in Miami is just, it's impressive. I mean, he's striking out, pitching innings, and he's like old school type pitcher. And I have him on both of my fantasy teams, and he's probably going to be one in my drafting from start. I'm probably going to try to get him just because he's Mr. Reliable now.
So, okay. So real quick to kind of wrap things up, I'm going to ask you just a couple. I just want you to fire off at me some answers to these questions. With the starting pitching being so deep, when drafting, is it bad to get big name pitchers first, or should you be patient and wait?
Okay, so now depending on your league,
Setting.
I would say yes, because if you're playing in a head-to-head categories league or a roto league, you could totally wait on starting pitching. Personally, the strategy that I've been using is I like to go 3 strong hitters first, preferably at some of those weak positions, like maybe third base or second base, and then the outfield is also pretty thin, so I would do that, and then try and grab a starting pitcher in the fourth, where there's still a lot of great names there. But if you're playing in a points league that rewards, starting pitching more, which I've seen in a lot of, points leagues, go ahead and you could take one, get one of those big strikeout guys early, get you the Sandy Alcantaras or the Corbin Burns or that type. So depending on your league settings, what you definitely want to know when you're playing fantasy baseball, make sure you know the settings of your league and see who was, if it's a points league, was rewarded more last year, and focus on that. But for the most part, I'd say you could hold off on starting pitching for at least the first few rounds.
Yeah, in the league, I'd start over every year. It kind of favors you to kind of do hitter, pitcher, then kind of focus on hitters for a little bit, then get some more hitters. So it just, you really have to focus on what the categories are. I just do head to head with categories. And so it just really depends on what you need, what position. And so you can always go best available, but you don't want to have like 4 different shortstop when you only can put them so many different spots. So
Yes.
With the draft day coming up, do you go for a player like Jacob deGrom? I mean, Lance McCullers, I know he's on IL, but players with a huge injury history.
Okay, now the thing is, I think it truly depends on the player here. When you're talking about a DeGrom or Clayton Kershaw, that if they stay healthy, if they give you 180 innings, they could potentially be the best pitcher in baseball. We've seen them do it before. And guys like that, okay, I'll take the risk on them, but I won't overload my team with guys like that. Right. If I take DeGrom, I'm not taking Kershaw as well. It's really one or the other when it comes to that. Now, if you're talking about a guy like, a Lance McCullers, or, even on the lower end, maybe like a James Paxton, I don't know how much it's actually really worth it to take them, because, then you're going to have them, sitting on the IL at some point. You don't know when it's going to be, and the reward isn't really worth the risk, in my opinion.
So when I'm looking at someone like a Walker Buehler who's going to be coming back, or how about Fernando Tatis Jr.? I was listening to the Padres preview on Sirius XM, and they were like, when this guy comes back, they're like, we see him hitting 40 home runs this year. And I mean, Tatis is coming into probably one of the most powerful lineups in all of baseball. I know the Astros are up there, but what are these guys going to do? I mean, do you get Tatis Jr. because you know what he can do? Do you get Walker Buehler and sit him on the aisle until he comes back?
So here's I absolutely love Fernando Tatis Jr. I have him in my biggest money league, my long-term keeper league that we've been playing for about 10 years. I have him. I believe he comes back on April 20th from that suspension. Luckily they made the playoffs, and it helped ease up a little bit of that time. When he comes back, he could be the best player in fantasy baseball. He's shown us that he could do it before. He's still young. I just think he needs to not be a bonehead. If he needs to really mature and say, hey, listen, look what you have here, and you have the opportunity that 99% of the other humans on the planet don't. You have the talent that 99% of the other humans on the planet don't. Go out and get Tatis. Somebody like Bryce Harper as well. I mean, he's going to be out a little bit longer, but if you could grab Bryce Harper and supplement it by taking like a Lars Nootbaar or one of these outfielders that has high upside going later. I love Oscar Gonzalez with the Guardians. You grab guys like that. Walker Buehler, I'm not as sure on. He's supposed to come back towards the end of the year. If you can get him with your last pick, sure, why not? Then it's all, and you have say you have like 4 IL spots, you throw them on the IL, you'll be fine. So those kind of guys, I do see it. Once again, if the talent is there where they could be elite at their position, go out and grab them.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it. Dominic, looks like Matt's it looks like we had some audio issues, and so he wasn't able to come back in, but we'll definitely have to have you guys back on, as you have kind of helped us navigate these waters as we go into our drafts. And I hope that the information that of those of y'all listening or watching, that you take some notes. And I'm sure on Twitter, if you have questions, shoot them a message at them on Twitter, ask them questions. I'm sure they would be glad to help you. Again, you can find them at Locked On Fantasy Baseball. Now, after making the Locked On Astros your first listen, you got to make your second listen Locked On Fantasy Baseball. Win your league by listening to Matt and Dom every day as they bring you the best fantasy draft strategies. Find Locked On Fantasy Baseball wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every single day. Y'all have a good one, and good luck in your fantasy leagues. And we hope that you all get what you have coming to you and get that prize, win that belt. Just make sure you're not in last so you don't get some crazy tattoo. But for myself, Eric Huysman, Dominic, and Matt, we are part of the Locked On Network, Locked On Astros, Locked On Fantasy Baseball. Y'all have a good one. As always, go Stros.
Go Astros.
See ya.